cloud is nothing but it's an outsourced data center, right? That ultimately somewhere in some other part of the world, a box, a physical machine is still there, on which your entire application and your ecosystem resides. Now, because this entire ecosystem has been outsourced, that doesn't mean that the entire responsibility of its maintenance and its configuration lies on the provider, right? And that's where the shared responsibility comes in. So see, cloud, of course, is an excitement, and everybody is either on the cloud, like you said, that some people are born in the cloud, or for some people is that they are too excited, and they just want to jump to the cloud, right? So for other people who are born in the cloud, there's definitely an edge that they understand cloud better.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Gaurav Batra show. Today, either you are born to the cloud company or you are into the digital transformation journey. You are not far away from the cloud implementation or uses of cloud. But what matters is how we are going to secure it. There are many different ways cloud can be compromised. And to discuss the specific issue for the cloud security, I have someone who has great digital transformation experience and experience in the implementation of cloud, Archit Rajesh. He is GM, IT and Group CISO with TeamLease Services Ltd. Let's hear from him. Hello Archit, welcome to the Gaurav Batra show.
Hey Gaurav, glad to be here.
Yep, and I am loving the weather in Bangalore. It's really awesome. But how you find it? Because I think your first decade of your career was in NCR, right? And then you shifted to Bangalore. How Bangalore is treating you?
Oh, yes, very rightly put up, Gaurav. I think weather is something that everybody tends to like about Bangalore. Precisely, this is actually the best thing. And of course, well, I've spent the first half of my career in Delhi NCR. So from that perspective, it's starkly different. All the more, I think there's a fresh energy in Bangalore. That's what I sense it.
Yes, energy is awesome here. I completely vouch for it. Archit, if I talk about your role, when you say it's a GM IT and Global CISO, so IT bhari hai ya security? So what do you do in your day-to-day life?
Sure, I think a tough question. I'll take an attempt to answer that. If you just look at it from a CISO perspective, TeamLease is now a conglomerate of 6 legal entities.
Okay.
So it is TeamLease Services Ltd, TeamLease Digital, TeamLease RegTech, TeamLease EdTech, TeamLease Education Foundation, and TeamLease HR Tech.
Okay.
So as the Group CISO, I run information security, data privacy, and IT compliance for all these companies. But then General Manager IT is something about where it's about digital transformation, right? And we realize as an organization that information security is something which has to be tightly tied in our digital transformation roadmap. So that's where while one role looks at the information security, the second one ties it with digital transformation.
Okay, digital transformation. When we are talking about, there's no way we don't talk or we can't talk about cloud security, right? So specifically, if I say as TeamLease is, I think, born in the cloud organization itself, right? And when we talk about cloud security, what is the first thing comes in your mind?
Honestly, it's not going to be very different than what most people would think about it. When you speak about cloud and precisely cloud security, cloud misconfigurations is something that comes in my mind. And I'm sure that happens with every other cloud practitioner and the business leader
Definitely, definitely. But can we go more broader in this? What cloud misconfiguration is all about?
Yeah, sure. I think I can talk a million minutes about that. But to introduce cloud misconfigurations, let's understand it that, of course, every new technology has got an SOP that this is the best way how exactly it has to be operated. This is the best way it has to be deployed, right? So is with cloud as well, right? Because cloud is nothing but it's an outsourced data center, right? That ultimately somewhere in some other part of the world, a box, a physical machine is still there, on which your entire application and your ecosystem resides. Now, because this entire ecosystem has been outsourced, that doesn't mean that the entire responsibility of its maintenance and its configuration lies on the provider, right? And that's where the shared responsibility comes in. I'm sure everybody knows about that, and enough has been said that what is the cloud shared responsibility model, that security of the cloud is going to be managed by the provider and security in the cloud is our responsibility, right? So that's where if we do not take care of the configurations, right, if we do not really figure out that what ports are there which needs to be blocked, what are those other configurations, if we do not put the right firewall layers, then of course these are all counted as misconfigurations and can certainly be one of the biggest vectors for cyber attacks.
And if I talk about the core areas where majorly this misconfiguration happens, where you would like to highlight?
So I think misconfigurations would ideally be spread across the cloud, right? I can actually take a quick example that why misconfigurations happen and how exactly misconfigurations happen. So see, cloud of course is an excitement, and everybody is either on the cloud, like you said, that some people are born in the cloud, or for some people is that they are too excited, and they just want to jump to the cloud, right? So for other people who are born in the cloud, there's definitely an edge that they understand cloud better. What happens with the organizations which are not born in the cloud and are having a legacy ecosystem? For them, the easiest way is to do a lift and shift. When they do a lift and shift, then this simply means that you are picking up your entire ecosystem. It could be a Java and Unix infrastructure, or it could be a heavily Microsoft-driven infrastructure. You put it on a box as is. And then what happens is that your teams and your ecosystem does not understand cloud so well. And that is the first step towards misconfigurations. We don't realize that now, say for example, you have two different VPCs, virtual private clouds, and the reason why these two VPCs are there, because you have two applications that talk to each other. Now you need to ensure that what are those ports that should be open, that should be allowed for the communication between these two VPCs. What kind of communication would you allow? You may be having several S3 buckets. Then what kind of access you have on these kind of buckets? Which resources need to be public facing? Similarly, talking about subnets, what are those things that you would keep in a private subnet? What are those things which you will keep in a public subnet, right? So I think these are certain things which most people who are young in their cloud journey, they don't realize. And even for people who are well versed with that, accidents happen, and sometimes mistakenly people do lead to misconfigurations. And ultimately, imagine that there is a port which is publicly open, which is not supposed to be, and somebody would just run a port scan, come to know about that, and can directly attack that.
And then you very well said that accident happens, right? Correct. Any case study you like to share on misconfiguration?
Yeah, sure. So I think I can tell you that in fact, about 4 years behind, TeamLease started its own cloud journey, right? So TeamLease is an AWS heavy organization. We have most of our cloud workload running out of AWS. So of course, because we had financially significant systems and we have big workload, which was predominantly a legacy architecture, a monolithic architecture, and the best piece to start the cloud journey was to push it via the lift and shift method. While we did it, what we did not realize that once you go into the cloud management really works differently. Now, again, like I said, that you will have to manage a separate VPC for your production. You have to have a separate VPC for your lower instances, like maybe your UAT environment, your test environment. Now, at times, of course, you push in a lot of data from your production to your lower environments, and before you do that, you anonymize that, you mask that, and then finally, there is a lot of interaction between different VPCs happening. And that's where we realize that there's a hell lot of configurations that if we overlook can actually lead to a lot of attacks. And I'll give you another very close example. Most people, of course, they create a lot of assets in the test environment, that okay, we are doing a certain POC, let's set up a separate environment, maybe a separate VPC, and of course, let's set up some machines and try it. After a POC is completed, maybe in 60 days, 90 days or whatsoever, of course, because it hits you directly in the cost, you always remember that you have to decommission the instance. But perhaps what happens is that most people do not realize that the right circle is that you decommission the instance and you have to delink it with the DNS entry, and you have to delete and remove the DNS entry. Just imagine, and this is exactly that what has happened, that a young guy just went ahead, decommissioned a POC instance, but actually left a dangling DNS entry. And immediately after that, we had a subdomain takeover attack. Right, so thankfully this was actually an a non-critical asset. It was only a POC thing. But imagine something of this sort happening. Right? So of course these kind of things do happen when organizations are young in their cloud journey, and of course for mature people also this may happen accidentally, like I said.
Very well said. And if I take this example or other misconfiguration challenges which you have said, right? What is stopping, or what are the biggest challenges security professionals are facing to fix this, or so that these configurations issues don't happen? Where we are going wrong?
So I think predominantly people don't have enough knowledge still about the cloud. And when I say cloud, as in not as a concept or as a principle, but about cloud management, right?
Oh, okay.
So that is definitely complex, and this just becomes more convoluted when you talk about hybrid cloud and multi-cloud, right? So imagine a large organization that have different cloud systems from all the hyperscalers, and perhaps they have some of the bare metal servers as well, which pushes them into a situation where they are both multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. Now it's difficult for an in-house DevOps team or a cloud management team to actually maintain uniformity of configurations in all these systems, right? It's happened, say for example, you have 250 servers. Now it's possible that configuration in any of these 250 servers perhaps gone wrong, and then actually that can lead to several different aspects. Imagine that one of these servers was actually having a misconfiguration. The attack happens on that, but through lateral movement, the threat actually crawls over to other instances as well. Right? So I think this is one of the most important problems, that people need to understand that different clouds have different kind of configuration mechanisms. And because I think I have spoken that the 3 steps to have an effective ecosystem is that visibility, uniformity, and finally these 2 leads to the 3rd step, which is governance. So the second thing, uniformity, is very important. When you talk about clouds, it's important that you uniformly configure all the configurations across the system.
Amazing. And I think if I ask the Archit way to fix this, what are the best practices you are using?
So there are several ways to solve the same problem. When I say several ways, I should rather put it is that several right ways to fix a problem, right? So I mean, there are various best practices, and depending on the size and scale of your organization or your workload, you can do different things. There are certain detective controls, certain preventive controls, and of course there are certain responsive controls. I think some of the basic things that we can do is that infrastructure as a code is something that always comes in handy, right? Because like I said in my previous statements, that the stepping stone towards misconfiguration, the first thing is actually either it happens because of a mistake or because somebody does not really understand it to the depth, right? So that's the reason infrastructure as a code, that means you have a defined script written by someone thoughtfully who really understands that yes, these are those things that need to be followed as proper configurations across my ecosystem. Now when I do this, what it ensures is that infrastructure as a code will ensure that all servers and all my assets across the cloud will follow the regime that has been designed very carefully. Even if mistakenly somebody goes and somebody tweaks one of the configurations, it will be overwritten by the infrastructure as a code script that you have written, right? So that is certain thing I think that will certainly bring in a lot of regularity in the way cloud systems are commissioned and decommissioned. And then finally, of course, there are modern systems like CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management, CWPP, Cloud Workload Protection Platform, and then CNAP, right? So I think just to start with, CSPM is definitely a good place to be in, because if you have large cloud workload, CSPM will actually work in as a real-time radar to alert you that in this particular part of your ecosystem, there is a misconfiguration, go and fix it. So I think these are some of the techniques that professionals can use it to avoid these.
No, okay. I think awesome points, Archit. But last, when you talk about the tools, when we talk about cloud security, actually suddenly there's a lot many tools and different solution comes as a perspective that you will start with the endpoint security, then you go into the XDR, then you go into the visibility, then posture management, SASE, CASB, identity management, where you have PIM, PAM, a lot of things, right? do they help to simplify the misconfigurations, or they add a layer where you need to configure these tools as well at the best level, right? So what's your point of take on having multiple tools to manage the cloud?
I think, see, there's nothing wrong about having multiple tools, but you very rightly pointed out that do these tools really help in managing misconfigurations or per se any landscape, or do they add to the conundrum? Actually, these tools can only help you enforce the design and the policy of controls, right? Tools are never going to be functioning entirely on their own. So I believe is that first we need to design the right policies, the right principles, that yes, this is how I will operate as an organization, I will operate as a ecosystem. And how this gets driven is through your business priorities, right? So you understand what are your business priorities, you do a proper risk assessment, risk mitigation, a comprehensive risk management, so that at any given point in time, you understand that this is my business, these are my business priorities, and these are the corresponding risks. Against these, you design a policy. Finally, all these tools are only going to help you enforce these policies, right? So if you talk about cloud security posture management, say for example, so of course, what kind of products you have in your digital ecosystem, what kind of audience do they really cater to, that will dictate the kind of policy that you should have. And finally, once you have designed that sort of a policy, then something like a CSPM will only help you monitor the adherence to that policy.
Sure. And after this conversation, one thing I can definitely come out with is whoever is going to work in cloud, they need to understand the cloud principle, framework, and have a baseline and start from the basics, right? So for all my young viewers and for all the learners or people who are going to start their journey with cloud, what are the best ways you will advise them to learn from so that these misconfigurations don't happen?
So my advice, to the upcoming talent in the industry, and of course other practitioners as well, would be that always follow the basics first, right? Before we jump into tooling and advanced concepts, it's important that first we understand that what cloud actually is as a principle, right? And then again, I think once you understand that what cloud is as a principle, certainly you can build up on top of it. And then if you have the foundation right, I'm sure you're never going to be facing a situation where you fall a victim to an attack happening due to misconfiguration. So my guru mantra would be that believe in the basics and always stick to basics first.
Awesome. It's amazing talking to you, Archit, and I guess the audience will take or leverage these insights from you. So thank you for being on the Gaurav Batra show. And here's a ritual which I like to give you a small goodie from our side. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaurav. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone. And stay tuned. Be safe. I will see you next Sunday. Take care.